For about 2,000 years now, humanity has really just thought the Star of Bethlehem was this, this miracle of peace. Like, we always picture this silent, majestic canvas, right? A gentle guiding light.
Yeah, totally. It's the classic greeting card image.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, well, according to a newly uncovered orbital reconstruction, we weren't looking at a guiding light at all. We were looking at a 50-kilometer-wide comet that came within hours of just wiping out the human race.
Right. It completely shatters that idyllic, quiet image of the night sky. I mean, we like to project stillness onto the stars, but the physical reality of the solar system is just incredibly dynamic.
It's violent, really.
It is. We are essentially living in a cosmic shooting gallery, and this deep dive explores a moment when we just narrowly avoided taking a direct hit.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our foundation today for you listening is a really fascinating 2026 paper by researcher Boris Krieger. And I want to be super clear right up front. We are strictly looking at physical, historical, and cross-domain evidence today.
Yeah, no theology debates here.
Right, we are impartially reporting the data without taking any theological sides at all. So Krieger's research uses this AI-driven methodology called an undirected multidisciplinary sweep, or UMS.
Which is really the hero of this whole research, honestly.
Yeah, and the mission here is to break down the walls that usually separate, astronomy, history, and ancient texts to reveal this mind-bending near-collision hypothesis.
To understand why a near-extinction event could remain just totally fragmented in the historical record for 2 millennia, we really have to look at the disciplinary silo problem.
Right.
Because for 4 centuries, we've had brilliant academics looking at the Star of Bethlehem, but, they've been trapped in their own specialized bubbles.
Which, it makes sense when you think about how academia works. You have astronomers who strictly track planetary alignments, right, and orbital mechanics.
Yeah, it's all they look at.
And then you have historians who spend their entire lives just analyzing the brutal politics of the Roman Empire, plus biblical scholars parsing ancient Greek syntax.
And sinologists specializing in, ancient Chinese astronomical records.
Exactly. So it's like having this massive, complex crime scene, right? And you assign 4 brilliant detectives to the case. But the catch is they're locked in totally separate rooms, and they're only allowed to look at the scene through a single keyhole.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. The astronomer sees a light in the sky. The historian sees a paranoid king. The scholar reads a prophecy. And because they're, academics trying to protect their own tenure tracks, they completely refuse to talk to each other to piece the whole picture together.
What's fascinating here is how the UMS method just circumvents all that human stubbornness. Instead of starting with a hypothesis and looking for proof through one specific keyhole.
Which is what we usually do.
Exactly. The UMS instructs an AI to sweep across all domains simultaneously. It collects literally everything from the period of 7 to 4 BCE, astronomy, archaeology, theology, and even numismatics, which is the study of ancient coins.
Oh, wow. So it just gathers the raw data of the human experience from that exact window without any bias.
Right. It creates what Krieger calls an evidential field. The AI mapped the semantic networks across all these different languages and disciplines.
And then the connections just pop out.
Yeah, when you lay all that data out on one giant interconnected table, the invisible correlations suddenly light up.
And to see those correlations, we really have to establish the baseline normal before everything goes completely sideways.
You do.
Because a celestial event doesn't change history unless the people on the ground are actually primed to look for it, right? So let's travel back to 7 BCE. What is happening in the sky, and how does that affect the political climate in Judea?
Well, in the sky, you have this very rare astronomical event. It's a triple conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in the constellation of Pisces.
So they lined up 3 times in 1 year.
Yeah, 3 separate times in 7 BCE. And we know ancient cultures were actively tracking this because of a specific Babylonian cuneiform tablet. It's known as BM 35429, excavated in the ancient city of Sippar.
Just to clarify for everyone listening, a cuneiform tablet is essentially like a clay ledger used in ancient Mesopotamia, right?
Right, exactly. They use them for everything, including astronomy.
And this specific clay ledger had the actual math predicting this conjunction.
Yes. The Babylonian astronomer priests were meticulous record keepers. The tablet predicted this triple conjunction months in advance. And in their complex system of astrology, these celestial bodies had very specific political meanings.
Right, it wasn't just weather to them.
No, not at all. Jupiter was the planet that represented kingship and ultimate authority. Saturn was strongly associated with the Western lands, specifically Judea, and Pisces was associated with wisdom, endings, and the dawn of a new era.
So if you are a Babylonian astrologer reading that sky, it isn't just a pretty alignment. The math is spelling out a very clear geopolitical message. Basically, a massive royal transition is coming in Judea.
Precisely. And
Well,
meanwhile, down on the ground in Judea, King Herod the Great is in the final, just most unstable years of his life.
he was not doing well.
No. He is elderly, he's sick, and he is deeply, deeply paranoid. I mean, he was actively executing his own family members, including his sons, because he was terrified of any rival claimant to the throne.
So you have this incredibly volatile political climate. Herod is acting like a cornered animal, just trying to hold on to power.
Right.
And the local population is fully saturated with messianic expectation. The deep dive sources highlight the Dead Sea Scrolls, specifically this fragment called 4Q175. It pulls a prophecy from the Book of Numbers saying, "A star shall come forth out of Jacob."
So the cultural powder keg is completely packed.
It is. But hold on, I actually have a logistical issue with this part of the story.
Oh, go ahead.
So if a Magi is Babylonian or Persian scholars, right? If they had the math on that clay tablet and they knew about this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction months in advance, why the sudden rush we see in the historical narrative?
That's a good question.
Right, like, are we supposed to believe a slow-moving planetary conjunction made them drop everything and just march across the desert right that second?
Well, no, and that is a crucial distinction. The conjunction of 7 BCE didn't make them travel. It primed them.
Oh, I see.
It built the interpretive framework. Because like you said, planetary conjunctions take months to unfold. They don't prompt immediate midnight journeys. The Magi knew something monumental was coming, so they prepared.
They were just waiting.
Exactly. They were watching the sky with a heightened sense of anticipation. So when the actual sudden trigger arrived 2 years later, they were already positioned to interpret it and move.
Okay, so the 7 BCE conjunction sets the stage. It gets their attention.
Yeah.
But to actually start a historical migration, you need a spark, a catalyst.
Right.
And that brings us to 5 BCE and a very famous astronomical impossibility found in the Gospel of Matthew. The text describes a star that went before the travelers and then stood over a specific location.
Which is a huge problem astronomically.
Right, because stars rise in the east and set in the west due to the Earth's rotation. They do not just hover in midair over a single house.
And for centuries, that exact phrase derailed any naturalistic explanation. People assumed it either had to be a pure theological metaphor or just a supernatural event that completely defied physics.
But then we get to 2025.
Yes. In 2025, a NASA planetary scientist named Mark Matney published a new orbital reconstruction that completely changes the paradigm. He cross-referenced the biblical text with ancient Chinese imperial records.
Specifically, a history called the Han Shu, right?
Exactly.
That is the UMS method in action right there, taking the Chinese astronomical data and applying it to Middle Eastern texts.
It really is. So in 5 BCE, Chinese court astronomers recorded a huixing. Translated, that means broom star, which was their precise observational term for a tailed comet.
Mm-hmm.
They recorded that it appeared in the asterism or star pattern that they called Capricornus. And here's the key. It remained visible in the sky for over 70 days.
Wow. So Maddie took that 70-day window, combined it with the coordinate data from the Chinese records, and essentially ran the orbital mechanics backward.
He did. And he found a family of cometary orbits that perfectly matched the Chinese observational records. In doing so, he introduced this concept called temporary geosynchronous motion.
Temporary geosynchronous motion. What does that actually mean?
Well, if a comet is on a highly specific, low-inclination trajectory, approaching Earth almost head-on at exactly the right velocity, its physical motion across the sky can briefly counteract the rotation of the Earth.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let me make sure I'm visualizing this correctly for listeners.
Right.
It's like you are driving down the highway at, say, 60 miles an hour.
Sorry.
You look out your passenger window, and there's a plane flying perfectly parallel to your car, also moving at 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Because your relative speeds match to you inside the car, it creates this intense optical illusion that the plane is just suspended, like it's standing completely still in midair.
That is exactly the physics at play. To an observer walking south from Jerusalem toward Bethlehem, this incoming comet would have appeared to move ahead of them in the southern sky.
Because of its trajectory.
Right. Then, during its closest approach, its orbital velocity matched the Earth's rotational velocity for roughly 2 hours. It would have appeared to literally freeze in the sky, completely fulfilling the description that had stood over them.
That is wild.
It is the only astronomical model ever proposed that actually satisfies the exact observational language used in antiquity.
But I mean, for an object in space to create that specific optical illusion, to match the Earth's rotation, that perfectly, it had to be incredibly close to the planet.
Existentially close. We are talking about a cometary nucleus estimated to be between 10 and 50 kilometers across, moving at a relative velocity of roughly 42 kilometers per second.
42 kilometers a second.
Yeah. Manny's reconstruction suggests it passed within roughly 1 lunar distance of Earth.
1 lunar distance. In astronomical terms, that is a hair's breadth. I mean, if a rock that size moving that fast had actually hit the Earth, what kind of damage are we looking at?
It would have released kinetic energy on par with, or potentially even exceeding, the Chicxulub impact.
Oh, wow. The dinosaur killer.
Exactly. That is the asteroid event that triggered the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction. A 50-kilometer comet hitting the Earth at 42 kilometers per second would vaporize oceans, fracture the crust, and envelop the planet in a massive firestorm.
Followed by a years-long impact winter, I assume.
Right. It would be a definitive reset of the biosphere. Extinction level.
Which makes this next part fascinating, because looking at the sources, I am noticing what seems like a pretty big contradiction between the historical accounts.
What do you mean?
Well, Matthew describes this star guiding the Magi during the day, right? It's an object pointing the way. But the Gospel of Luke talks about shepherds in a field being terrified by the glory of the Lord and a multitude of the heavenly host at night. From an astronomical standpoint, how can both of those observations be true?
If we connect this to the bigger picture and look at the anatomy of a comet and the timeline of a close flyby, there's actually no contradiction at all. Yeah. They are describing two distinct phases of the exact same event. Because a comet isn't just a solid nucleus. It has a coma, which is the massive cloud of gas surrounding it, and a tail of dust and debris stretching millions of miles away from the sun.
Ah, I see. So Matthew's describing the daytime closest approach, the solid nucleus creating that optical illusion of hovering.
Right.
But the shepherds in Luke are seeing what happens a few hours later.
Precisely. As the comet nucleus passed us, the Earth's orbit carried us directly through the comet's massive debris tail that evening.
Oh, man.
And when Earth passes through a dense cometary tail, you get a meteor storm. But given the proximity of this flyby, this would have been an unprecedented atmospheric event.
The sky would have been completely saturated with bolides. And just to clarify for everyone listening, bolides are those large meteors that explode as they superheat in the atmosphere.
Yes, thousands of them detonating in the upper atmosphere, radiating from the southern sky. The night would have been literally as bright as day.
It's terrifying.
Think about it from their perspective. To shepherds standing in a field in the 1st century with absolutely no concept of atmospheric entry physics or orbital debris fields, a sky violently exploding with light and streaks of fire looks exactly like a host of celestial beings.
The sheer terror of that moment must have been indescribable. And knowing that context completely reframes a word we hear constantly around this topic, savior. In the original Greek, the word is soter.
It really forces a massive reevaluation of that term, because in modern times, we view savior as this abstract spiritual or theological concept.
Right.
But in the ancient Hellenistic world, soter was a concrete, highly specific title. It was granted to leaders or deities who delivered a population from immediate physical destruction.
Wow. So it wasn't just a metaphor for spiritual peace. The sky literally caught fire, the world hovered on the brink of absolute physical annihilation, and humanity just barely survived the night.
Exactly.
And the child born in that exact window of deliverance was given the title of the one who saves.
The physical survival of the species and the theological narrative became permanently intertwined right there.
But, you know, this raises a massive historical red flag for me.
Okay, what's that?
If a comet the size of a city hovered in the sky, filled the night with exploding fire for 70 days, and nearly caused human extinction, why didn't the Romans write about it?
That's the big question.
Right. Why doesn't the meticulous Jewish historian Josephus mention it? It just feels like we're missing half the puzzle here.
It's a very logical question. The silence in the Western historical record is incredibly loud. But it isn't necessarily a conscious, organized cover-up like a conspiracy. It is a phenomenon historians call a pattern of selective silence.
Driven by structural blindness, right?
Yes. There are 4 distinct layers to why the West didn't record this, or why those records just didn't survive.
So what does this all mean? Let's break those down. What is the first layer?
The first is the Roman political disincentive. During the specific window, Emperor Augustus was heavily promoting the Pax Augustana.
Which was what, a state-sponsored narrative of universal peace?
Exactly, a golden age of perfect Roman peace. And in Roman culture, comets were almost exclusively viewed as terrible omens. They signaled the death of kings, the fall of empires, impending disaster.
So it's essentially like modern algorithmic filtering. You only see the data your system is designed to show you.
That's a perfect comparison.
If an event completely contradicts the dictator's core narrative, state media just ignores it. The Romans had their own political algorithm. A massive, terrifying comet threatening the Earth is a PR nightmare for an emperor selling universal peace. The historians who wanted to keep their heads weren't exactly incentivized to record it.
Right. The political climate heavily filtered the data. And adding to that mystery, the famous Roman historian Cassius Dio, who actually did track comets when they fit his narrative, has a massive physical lacuna in his surviving manuscripts.
A lacuna is a missing chunk of text, right?
Yes. And the missing pages cover the exact years of 5 to 2 BCE, so if he did write it down, the evidence has been literally lost to time.
That is incredibly convenient timing for a missing chapter. So what are the other layers?
The second layer is early Christian theological blindness. The early church treated the star purely as a divine miracle. They had no interest in recording its orbital mechanics or physical properties because, to them, the physics didn't matter.
They just cared about the meaning.
Exactly. The third layer is medieval transmission bias. Monks hand-copying texts for centuries only preserved documents that reinforce their specific worldview.
And the fourth?
The fourth layer is the modern disciplinary silos we discussed at the start. The astronomers ignoring the history and the historians ignoring the astronomy.
This is such a vital takeaway for you listening. Silence in the historical record doesn't mean an event didn't happen. It often just highlights the institutional and conceptual blind spots of the culture doing the recording. Silence is just, well, a different kind of data.
And if we follow the physics of this event rather than just the texts, a new, very concerning reality emerges.
Right, because of the gravity. Because if a massive comet on a bound orbit narrowly misses Earth, it doesn't just fly away cleanly. It gets perturbed by Earth's gravity.
Exactly.
The planet's mass tugs on the comet, altering its trajectory. So the inevitable question is, what happens when it comes back?
This brings us to a remarkable parallel between orbital mechanics and ancient typology. In the New Testament, you have Matthew's star, the aster, which arrives, heralds a historical moment, and ultimately misses the Earth.
Okay.
But later, in the book of Revelation, chapter 8, there is a description of an apocalyptic star named Wormwood. The text states, "A great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch, and it poisoned a third of the earth's waters."
Wait, so you're telling me the star Bethlehem that started this story and the apocalyptic star Wormwood that ends the world might literally be the exact same rock returning on a perturbed orbit?
This raises an important question, doesn't it? And it is a profound possibility that perfectly aligns with how planetary defense science operates today. Scientists track what are called gravitational keyholes.
What are those?
When a near-Earth object passes close to our planet, our gravity slightly bends its path. Over multiple orbits, that minor tweak can shift a near miss into a direct collision course. This isn't just theology, it's orbital mechanics.
And the description of Wormwood turning the water bitter, that isn't just poetic language, is it?
No, it is actually a phenomenologically exact description of a cometary impact.
Really? How so?
Cometary comas contain massive amounts of cyanogen and hydrogen cyanide. If a comet fractured and impacted oceanic or freshwater systems, it would toxify the water supply on a continental scale.
So the apocalyptic literature in Revelation might not just be a mystical, psychedelic vision of the future. It could be what Krieger refers to as compressed historical memory.
Precisely. Ancient cultures witnessed these cyclical cometary close calls. They saw the sign in the sky, and perhaps generations later they experienced the subsequent meteor storms or smaller atmospheric impacts as the debris field returned.
Yeah.
But lacking telescopes and orbital math, they compressed that empirical generational memory into religious prophecy. The astronomical sign and the physical destruction are causally linked by gravity, even if the ancients described the mechanism through theology.
That fundamentally changes how you read ancient history. And, it highlights why this deep dive matters for you listening.
Absolutely.
By breaking down these rigid academic silos, by looking at Babylonian math, Roman political PR, Chinese astronomical records, and biblical texts all at once, we don't just get a clearer picture of ancient history. We gain a framework for seeing through our own modern structural blind spots.
Right. Knowledge isn't just a pile of isolated data points.
No, true knowledge is how you connect the data. It's having the peripheral vision to put it all together.
It forces us to ask critical questions about our own era, like
Yeah.
what massive realities are we currently blind to simply because we're only looking through our own specific, specialized keyholes.
Exactly. And to leave you with one final mind-bending thought from the source material that we haven't even touched on yet.
Oh, this is the best part.
If the Earth really did pass through the dense tail of this massive comet in 5 BCE, it wouldn't just leave stories behind, it would leave a physical, chemical footprint on the planet.
Yes. The researchers point to the Greenland ice core prediction.
The GISP2 project.
Right. Ice cores capture atmospheric data year by year, layered perfectly, kind of like tree rings.
So if the meteor storm happened, there should be an anomalous spike of extraterrestrial markers. Heavy elements like iridium, platinum, and ammonium trapped in the GISP2 ice core at the exact 5 BCE layer.
Yes.
And right now, as you are listening to this, an official inquiry based on this research is sitting at the National Science Foundation Ice Core facility in Denver.
They physically possess the ice cores covering that specific window of ancient history.
The physical proof of the Star of Bethlehem, the undeniable chemical evidence of humanity's near extinction, might literally be sitting in a deep freezer in Colorado, just waiting to be found.
It perfectly illustrates how much data is sitting right in front of us, waiting to be discovered the moment we learn how to ask the right questions.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning your assumptions, keep looking at the big picture, and the next time you look up at that peaceful, quiet night sky, remember, you're looking at a cosmic shooting gallery.